The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was the largest room Daniel Porter had ever seen. Massive pillars of white stone rose toward a ceiling so high that clouds sometimes formed near the top. Representatives from 100 different species sat in their assigned places, arranged in careful order of importance. The most powerful species sat at the center, close to the speaking platform. The newer members sat a bit further back, and humanity sat at the very edge, behind everyone else, on small, uncomfortable benches that had never been replaced in 300 years. Daniel straightened his uniform and looked around the room one last time. He had spent 20 years as Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Empire. 20 years of polite smiles hiding quiet insults. 20 years of being told that humanity was not quite ready for full membership. 20 years of watching his people treated like children who could not be trusted with sharp objects. Today, all of that would end. High Counselor Vareth sat at the center of the chamber on a throne made of living crystal. He was Kathrani, a species of tall reptilian beings with silver scales and 4 arms. The Kathrani had founded the Galactic Empire 8,000 years ago, and they had never let anyone forget it. Vareth waved one of his hands lazily, signaling that Daniel could speak. Daniel walked to the speaking platform. He could feel the eyes of every species in the room watching him. Most of those eyes held boredom. A few held amusement. None held respect. "Honored members of the Council," Daniel began, keeping his voice calm and steady, "the United Earth Federation has reached a decision." Barath made a sound that might have been a sigh. "If this is another petition for advanced trade status ambassador, I believe the Council has made its position very clear. Humanity is not ready for such responsibilities." Laughter rippled through the chamber. The Vorathi delegates clicked their mandibles together in their species version of mockery. The Tellurians whispered to each other behind their hands, not even trying to hide their smiles. Daniel had heard this laughter many times before. It used to make his face burn with shame. Now it only made him feel tired. "No, High Counselor," Daniel said. "Humanity is not here to petition for anything. We are here to inform you that effective immediately, Earth and all human colonies are withdrawing from the Galactic Empire." The laughter stopped. The whispers stopped. For one perfect moment, the entire chamber was completely silent. "We are leaving," Daniel continued. "Our ships, our technology, our people, everything. We thank you for the 3 centuries of education. We have learned much about what the galaxy truly thinks of us." Counselor Marath of the Tellurian Dominion stood up so fast that her chair fell backward. She was humanoid in shape but taller, with pale blue skin and eyes that held no warmth. "You cannot simply leave. The Empire's borders are closed to non-members. Your ships would be destroyed before they reached open space. Where exactly do you think you will go?" Daniel reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small silver device. He placed it on the speaking platform and pressed a button on its surface. A holographic map appeared above the council floor. But it was not the familiar map of the Empire's territory that the delegates had seen 1,000 times before. This map showed space beyond the galactic arm, regions that no species had ever explored. Dozens of star systems were marked in blue. With lines connecting them to each other, humanity has spent the last 150 years developing faster-than-light technology that goes beyond anything in the Empire's records, Daniel explained. "We have been mapping and colonizing territory past your borders for the last 70 years. 17 worlds, High Counselor. 17 human worlds that you never knew existed." The chamber exploded into noise. Delegates shouted questions and accusations. Some demanded proof. Others called Daniel a liar. Vareth struck the arm of his throne 3 times, the traditional signal for silence, but it took nearly a minute for the room to quiet down. "This is impossible," Vareth said. His voice was no longer lazy or bored. "We have monitored human technology for centuries. You do not possess the capability for such expansion." "You monitored what we showed you," Daniel replied. "You saw what you expected to see, a primitive species slowly learning to walk among the stars. A species that needed your guidance and your restrictions. A species that would wait patiently for a full membership that was never going to come." He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of as many delegates as he could. 300 years ago, humanity came to you with open hands. We were excited. We were hopeful. We thought we were joining a community of equals, a gathering of species who would share knowledge and friendship and help each other grow. Daniel's voice grew harder. Instead, we found out what you really thought of us. We were given provisional status, a polite way of saying we were not good enough to sit at your table. We were banned from developing certain technologies. We were excluded from trade routes. We were told again and again that we were not ready. We paused to take a breath. When our colony on New Athens was attacked by raiders from the Vex Syndicate, 3,000 of our people died. We begged for help. We begged for protection. And you told us that humans were not covered by mutual defense treaties because we were only provisional members. You told us we should not have built a colony so far from protected space. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The New Athens massacre was not something the council liked to discuss. That was when we understood, Daniel said. We were never going to be accepted here. We were never going to be treated as equals. The only way humanity would ever be free was to become strong enough that we did not need your permission. He gestured at the holographic map still floating above the floor. So we built, in secret, in silence, in places you never thought to look. We developed technology that surpassed yours decades ago. We found new worlds and made them our homes. We created a future for ourselves that does not depend on your approval. Daniel picked up the silver device and put it back in his pocket. By the time you receive this message, the evacuation of human space will be nearly complete. Our colonies are being emptied as we speak. Within 2 weeks, there will not be a single human being left inside the borders of the Galactic Empire. Turn to face Vareth directly. We are not asking for your permission. We are not negotiating for better terms. We are simply telling you what is happening. Humanity is leaving, and we are never coming back. Daniel stepped down from the speaking platform and began walking toward the exit. Behind him, the chamber erupted into chaos once more. He heard Varath shouting for order. He heard Marath demanding that the human ships be stopped. He heard a dozen other voices calling for explanations, for negotiations. For anything that might undo what had just happened, he did not look back. Outside the chamber, his assistant Katie Morgan was waiting with a nervous expression on her face. Sir, our transport is ready. All embassy staff have already departed. Daniel nodded. Then let's go. We have a long journey ahead of us. As they walked toward the landing pad, Katie glanced back at the council building. Do you think they will try to stop us? Daniel smiled, though there was no happiness in it. They can try, but they have no idea what we have become. They spent 300 years teaching us to be invisible. Now they are going to learn just how much we learned when they were not watching. The transport lifted off, carrying the last human officials away from the heart of the Galactic Empire. Below them, the council was still arguing about what to do. They would argue for days. By then, it would be far too late. Vice Admiral Lisa Morgan stood on the observation deck of the Starship Endeavour. Watching the last evacuation transports rise from the surface of New Athens' colony, the planet looked peaceful from up here, with its green forests and blue oceans sparkling in the light of its yellow sun. It was hard to believe that this beautiful world was about to be abandoned forever. The Galactic Empire had responded to humanity's announcement with an ultimatum. All unauthorized expansion activities were to stop immediately. All human ships were to return to their assigned territories. All secret colonies were to be surrendered for inspection. Humanity had 30 days to comply or face military action. They had needed only 12 days to finish the evacuation, Commander. Nathan Cole walked up beside Lisa and handed her a cup of coffee. It was real coffee, grown on Earth, and soon it would become rare. The new worlds had their own plants, their own flavors. This taste of home would eventually become just a memory. The last transport just cleared atmosphere, Nathan said. New Athens is officially empty. Nothing left but buildings and memories. Lisa nodded slowly, keeping her eyes on the planet below. My grandmother was born here, you know. She used to tell me stories about the early days when the colony was just a few thousand people trying to build a new life. She was so proud of what they had created. She would be proud of you too, Nathan said quietly. Lisa was not so sure. Her grandmother had died believing that humanity would eventually earn its place in the Empire. She had believed that if they just worked hard enough and proved themselves worthy, the Council would grant them full membership. That hope had kept her going through the darkest days after the massacre. It was a hope that Lisa no longer shared. She turned away from the viewport and walked to the tactical display at the center of the deck. The holographic screen showed hundreds of blue dots moving through space, each one representing a human ship. Some were military vessels like the Endeavour. Others were cargo haulers packed with supplies and equipment. Most were passenger ships carrying millions of people away from their homes. "How long until the Empire realizes we are not going to comply with their demands?" Nathan asked. "They probably know already," Lisa replied. "Their spy satellites have been watching our movements for days. They just do not want to believe what they are seeing." She remembered what her grandfather had told her about the early years of humanity's secret expansion. He had been one of the original planners. A brilliant scientist who had grown tired of watching his species be treated like children. "It started with the New Athens massacre," Lisa said, more to herself than to Nathan. "That was the moment everything changed. 3,000 people dead, and the Empire did nothing. They told us we had been foolish to build a colony so far from protected space. They told us we should have known better." Nathan's jaw tightened. He had lost an uncle in that attack. "I remember. My grandfather was at the emergency meeting right after the news came in. He said everyone was angry, but no one knew what to do. The Empire was too powerful. We could not fight them directly. We could not even complain publicly without making things worse." Lisa pulled up a different display, showing the secret facilities that humanity had built over the past century. Hidden shipyards inside hollowed asteroids, research stations disguised as mining operations, manufacturing plants buried deep underground where no satellite could see them. They decided to do something completely different. Instead of fighting, they would prepare. Instead of complaining, they would build. Instead of asking for permission, they would create their own future. She highlighted one of the facilities, an asteroid station that had produced over 2,000 ships in the past 50 years. The first generation built the foundation. They developed the technology and found ways to hide it from Empire inspections. The second generation expanded the operation. They recruited the best minds from every human world and gave them the freedom to innovate without restrictions. By the third generation, we had surpassed the Empire in almost every area of technology. Nathan studied the display with a mixture of wonder and sadness. All those years of pretending to be weaker than we were. All those inspectors we had to fool. All those insults we had to swallow with a smile. It was necessary, Lisa said. The Empire would have destroyed us if they knew what we were doing. We needed time. Time to build ships. Time to find new worlds. Time to prepare a place for all of humanity. A signal chimed from the communications station. Lieutenant Amy Carson turned from her console with an urgent expression. "Admiral, we are receiving a transmission from the Empire's border fleet. They are demanding that we halt all ship movements and prepare for inspection." Lisa walked over to the communications station and looked at the screen. The message was from Admiral Vorox of the Kethrani Navy, one of the most senior military officers in the Empire. His scaled face was twisted with barely controlled anger. "Human vessels, you are in violation of the Council's directive. You will stop your ships immediately and allow our forces to board them. Any resistance will be met with deadly force. This is your final warning." Lisa considered the message for a moment, then pressed the reply button. "Admiral Vorax, this is Vice Admiral Lisa Morgan of the United Earth Federation. We have received your warning, and we reject it. Humanity is no longer subject to the Council's authority. We are leaving the Empire's territory peacefully, and we have no intention of engaging your forces. However, if you attempt to stop us, we will defend ourselves." She paused, then added one more thing. "Suggest you check your tactical sensors before making any decisions. You might be surprised by what you find." Lisa cut the connection and turned to Nathan. "Show them." Nathan nodded and entered a command into his console. Across the human fleet, thousands of ships simultaneously dropped their sensor jamming for exactly 5 seconds. It was long enough for the Empire's scanners to see the true size and capability of humanity's armada. The response from Admiral Buax came almost immediately. His voice had lost some of its confidence. "How is this possible? Where did you get so many ships?" Lisa did not bother to answer. She simply ordered the fleet to continue on its course. For hours, the Empire's border patrol followed them at a safe distance, watching but not attacking. They saw the massive cargo ships that could carry entire cities' worth of supplies. They saw the sleek warships with weapon systems that did not match anything in their databases. They saw the elegant colony ships designed to establish new civilizations on distant worlds. They saw 3 centuries of secret preparation displayed before them, and they understood at last that they had badly underestimated the species they had dismissed as primitive. As the last human ship crossed the boundary into unexplored space, Lisa allowed herself a moment of quiet satisfaction. Behind them lay everything humanity had known for 300 years. The insults, the restrictions, the constant reminder that they were not good enough. Ahead of them lay something new. Something they had built themselves, without permission from anyone. "Set course for New Horizon," Lisa ordered. "It is time to go home." The stars stretched and blurred as the fleet jumped faster than light speed, leaving the Galactic Empire far behind. High Counselor Vareth had lived for 427 years. He had served on the Galactic Council for over 2 centuries. He had seen wars begin and end. He had watched species rise to greatness and fall to ruin. He had believed that nothing could truly surprise him. Anymore, he had been wrong. The emergency session had been called 3 days after humanity's announcement, and the council chamber was filled with a kind of nervous energy that Vareth had never felt before. Representatives who normally fell asleep during long meetings were now leaning forward in their seats, hanging on every word. Intelligence Director Salen stood at the speaking platform, her insectoid body rigid with tension. She was Varathi, a species known for their calm analysis and careful thinking. Right now, she looked anything but calm. "Our initial assessment of the situation was incorrect," Salen began. "We believe that humanity's claims of advanced technology and secret colonies were exaggeration or outright lies. We were wrong." She activated a holographic display showing tactical data from the border encounter. "Our patrol fleet tracked the human exodus for 18 hours before they jumped to faster than light speed and disappeared from our sensors. In that time, we gathered extensive data on their ships and capabilities." The display zoomed in on several human vessels, showing detailed scans of their systems. "Their jump drive technology is approximately 60 years ahead of ours. Their shields are more efficient. Their weapon systems use power configurations we do not recognize. Most concerning of all, their ships appear to be equipped with some form of sensor jamming that prevented us from seeing their numbers until they chose to reveal themselves." Counselor Marath rose from her seat, her blue face pale with disbelief. "How many ships did they have?" The human fleet registry showed fewer than 800 vessels capable of interstellar travel. "The registry was incomplete," Salen said. "Or more accurately, the registry showed us only what humanity wanted us to see. Our current estimate is that they possessed approximately 12,000 ships, possibly more." 8. The chamber erupted into shocked murmuring. 12,000 ships was larger than the combined fleets of several mid-sized Empire members. It was a number that should have been impossible for a species that had been under constant surveillance. Ambassador Joreth of the Varathi Collective raised one of his many limbs. "Director, how did they hide such a fleet from our inspections? We examined their shipyards every year. We counted their vessels. We monitored their manufacturing capacity. They built their ships in places we never thought to look," Salen replied. "Hollowed asteroids. Underground facilities on worlds we thought were too harsh for habitation. Stations in deep space, far from any established routes. They spent a century and a half constructing an infrastructure that existed entirely outside our awareness." She changed the display to show a timeline of human technological development. "Now believe that humanity surpassed our technology level approximately 90 years ago. They continued to show us older, inferior designs during our inspections, while developing advanced systems in secret. Every piece of equipment we examined was essentially a prop, built to confirm our assumptions about human limitations. Vareth felt a cold sensation spreading through his body. For 300 years, the Council had treated humanity as a minor species, not worthy of full membership or serious attention. They had restricted human development because they believed humans were not mature enough to handle advanced technology all that time. The humans had been quietly becoming more powerful than any of them had imagined. What about the colonies? Vareth asked. The ones outside our borders? Salen hesitated before answering. We have attempted to locate them using long-range sensors. We have found nothing. Either the colonies do not exist, or they are hidden by the same jamming technology that concealed their fleet. They exist, said a voice from the back of the chamber. Everyone turned to see Trade Minister Kareth walking down the aisle toward the speaking platform. Kareth was Tellurian, a member of the same species as Councillor Marith. But unlike his colleague, he had always argued for better treatment of humanity. Most of the council had ignored his warnings. I have been reviewing trade records from the past 70 years, Kareth said. There are patterns that we should have noticed long ago. Massive purchases of raw materials that exceeded humanity's apparent needs. Construction equipment sent to destinations that were never verified. Medical supplies for population numbers that did not match official records. He placed his own data device on the platform, and new information appeared on the holographic display. Based on these patterns, I estimate that humanity has established between 15 and 20 major colonies outside our borders, with a combined population of at least 50 million people. These colonies have been receiving supplies and immigrants for decades, right under our noses. The chamber fell silent as the full scope of what had happened became clear. Humanity had not just built a secret fleet. They had created an entire civilization beyond the Empire's reach. While the Council had been debating whether to extend their provisional status for another century, the humans had been quietly preparing to leave forever. Varath leaned forward on his throne. Director Salen, what are our options for pursuing the human fleet? Can we follow them to these new colonies? Theoretically, yes, Salen replied. But there are significant problems. First, we do not know where they went. It could be anywhere in the unexplored regions, and those regions are vast. Second, their ships are faster than ours. Even if we found them, catching them would be extremely difficult. Third, she paused, choosing her next words carefully. Third, if we did catch them, I am not confident that we could defeat them. The weapons we observed on their ships were unlike anything in our databases. Our tactical analysts believe that. In a direct engagement, the human fleet would have a significant advantage. The words hung in the air like a physical weight. The Galactic Empire, which had dominated this region of space for 8,000 years, had just been told that a species they had dismissed as primitive could probably defeat them in battle. Councillor Marath slammed her fist against her desk. This is unacceptable. We cannot allow a rogue species to simply leave our territory and establish a rival power on our borders. We must take action. What action do you suggest? Kareth asked quietly. Attack them with ships that cannot catch them? Invade colonies we cannot find? Declare war on a species that has already demonstrated they can outrun and potentially outfight us? Marath opened her mouth to respond, then closed it again. She had no answer. Vareth sat back in his throne and stared at the holographic display showing human ship movements. For 3 centuries, his government had controlled humanity through a combination of restrictions and condescension. They had believed they were managing a primitive species, keeping them safe until they matured enough to be trusted. Now he understood the truth. They had not been managing humanity. They had been creating the conditions for exactly what had just happened. Contact the human fleet, Vareth ordered.
Out.
Open a diplomatic channel. We will offer them full membership status. Complete voting rights. Whatever they want. His aide hurried to obey, but returned a few minutes later with a troubled expression. High Counselor, the human communication systems are not responding to our signals. We have attempted every frequency and protocol in our records. Either they cannot hear us, or they are choosing not to answer. Vareth closed his eyes. Keep trying, he said. Keep trying until they respond. but deep down, he already knew what the answer would be. Humanity was done talking to the Galactic Empire. After 300 years of being ignored, they had finally found their voice, and they had used it to say goodbye. Dr. Patricia. Webb had spent 63 years on Earth. She had been born there, raised there, educated there, and had always expected to die there. The thought of leaving her home planet had never seriously crossed her mind. Even during the darkest days, when the Empire's restrictions felt most suffocating, now she stood in the observation lounge of the colony ship Horizon, watching Earth shrink to a tiny blue dot against the blackness of space. Around her, thousands of other passengers were doing the same thing, pressing their faces against the viewports for one last look at the world that had given birth to their species. Some were crying quietly. A few smiled with relief, glad to finally be free of a system that had never wanted them. Patricia felt all of these emotions at once. Her granddaughter Sophie tugged at her sleeve. The girl was only 12 years old, young enough that she had never known anything except humanity's diminished status in the Empire. She had grown up hearing that humans were lesser, primitive, unworthy of respect. "Grandmother, are we really leaving forever?" Sophie asked. "Are we never going to see Earth again?" Patricia knelt down so she was at eye level with the girl. "Yes, sweetheart, we are really leaving. And no, we probably will not see Earth again. At least not for a very long time. But why? Why can we not stay?" It was a simple question, but the answer was not simple at all. Patricia thought about how to explain 3 centuries of history to a child. "Come sit with me," she said, leading Sophie to a quiet corner of the lounge. "Let me tell you a story." They settled into comfortable chairs, and Patricia began. "A long time ago, before your mother was born, before I was born, before even my grandmother was born, humanity discovered that we were not alone in the universe. Ships from the Galactic Empire found Earth and made contact with us. Everyone was so excited. We thought we had found friends among the stars." Sophie nodded. She had learned this part in school, but the Empire did not see us as friends. They saw us as children who needed to be controlled. They gave us something called provisional status, which meant we could not do many things that other species could do. We could not develop certain technologies. We could not travel to certain places. We could not vote on important decisions. "That does not seem fair," Sophie said. "It was not fair. But we accepted it at first because we thought it was temporary. We thought that if we worked hard and proved ourselves, they would eventually treat us as equals." Patricia's voice grew heavier as she continued. 50 years passed, and they extended our provisional status. Then another 50 years, and they extended it again. Every time we asked to become full members, they found another reason to say no. We were not ready. We were not advanced enough. We needed more time to mature. She paused, remembering her own grandmother's stories about those frustrating decades. Then something terrible happened. A colony called New Athens was attacked by raiders. 3,000 people died, including women and children. We begged the Empire for help, but they refused. They said humans were not covered by their protection treaties because we were only provisional members. Sophie's eyes widened. They just let those people die? Yes, and that was when everything changed. Patricia looked around the observation lounge to make sure no one was listening too closely. What she was about to share was not exactly secret anymore, but old habits died hard. After the New Athens massacre, a group of very smart people decided that waiting for the Empire's approval was pointless. They started a secret project. They called it the Prometheus Initiative. "What is Prometheus?" Sophie asked. Prometheus is a figure from ancient human mythology, who was someone who stole fire from the gods and gave it to humans. The name was chosen because that is what the project was trying to do: steal knowledge and power that the Empire wanted to keep from us. Patricia smiled at the memory of her own father explaining this to her when she was not much older than Sophie. The project started small. Scientists would share secret research through coded messages hidden in entertainment broadcasts. Engineers would build prototype components disguised as farming equipment. Pilots would train on simulators that everyone thought were just video games. "That sounds like a spy movie," Sophie said, her eyes brightening with interest. "It was something like that, yes, except it was real, and it went on for over 100 years. Patricia pulled out a small tablet and showed Sophie some images that had been approved for public viewing, now that the exodus was underway. Pictures of hidden shipyards carved into asteroids. Underground factories producing technology that was decades ahead of what the Empire thought humans could build. Secret research stations where brilliant minds worked without the restrictions that the Council imposed. The first thing they developed was a new kind of engine that could travel faster than anything the Empire had.
Oh.
Then they created better computers, better shields, better sensors, better everything. Sophie studied the images with fascination. Why did they not tell the Empire? If we were stronger than them, why did we keep pretending to be weak? Because if the Empire knew what we were doing, they would have destroyed us before we were ready. We needed time. Time to build ships. Time to find new planets. Time to create a place where all humans could live free. His aide walked in with a portable display in his hands. "Hi, Counselor, we have received a transmission. It appears to be from human space." Vareth spun around so fast that he nearly lost his balance. "What? When? Play it immediately." The aide set up the display on Vareth's desk, and a holographic image appeared above it. It showed a human face, one that Vareth recognized immediately. Ambassador Daniel Porter, the man who had announced humanity's departure 5 years ago. He looked older now, but there was a peace in his eyes that had not been there before. "Greetings, High Counselor," Daniel said. "I am transmitting from New Horizon, capital city of the human Commonwealth. We thought you might want to know how we are doing." The image expanded to show the planet behind Daniel. It was beautiful beyond words, with vast blue oceans. Green continents covered in forests and cities that seemed to grow naturally from the landscape rather than dominating it. 17 worlds have become 43, Daniel continued. Our population has doubled. The children born in the Commonwealth have never known what it feels like to be told they are not good enough. They have never experienced the discrimination that my generation grew up with. They are free, High Counselor. Truly free? Vareth leaned closer to the display, drinking in every detail. We have encountered 4 new intelligent species beyond the Empire's borders. They had never heard of your provisional status or your restrictions. They judge us by our actions, not by ancient prejudices. 3 of them have become our trading partners. 1 has joined us as full members of the Commonwealth. With equal rights and equal representation. Daniel paused, and something like sadness crossed his face. There was a time, centuries ago, when we would have done anything to earn your respect. We came to you with open arms and open hearts. We offered you friendship, partnership, the chance to know a species unlike any you had ever encountered. A species that builds and dreams and never stops reaching for more. His voice grew heavier. You could have had allies unlike any in your history. Humans do not live as long as Kathrani or Tellurians, but that just makes us work faster. We accomplish in decades what other species take centuries to achieve. We adapt to any environment. We solve problems that others have given up on. We never, ever surrender. Daniel shook his head slowly. But you saw only what you expected to see. A primitive species, barely out of the trees, not worthy of sitting at your table. You spent 300 years telling us we were not ready, and now you are discovering just how ready we actually were. The image shifted again, showing ships in orbit around New Horizon. They were larger and more elegant than the vessels the Empire had seen during the Exodus. Human technology had continued advancing in the 5 years since their departure. I am not transmitting this message to gloat, Daniel said. I take no pleasure in your difficulties. Many of my people were angry for a long time, and some of them still are. But anger is not what built the Commonwealth. Hope built it. Determination built it. The belief that we could create something better than what we left behind. He looked directly at the recording device, as if he could see Vareth through time and space. We bear you no ill will. Truly, you taught us valuable lessons. Even if they were not the lessons you intended. You taught us to rely on ourselves. You taught us to build in secret. You taught us to never again put our fate in the hands of those who see us as lesser. Daniel's expression softened slightly. If your people ever need help, if there is a disaster or a crisis that threatens innocent lives, you can send a message to these coordinates. We will not ignore suffering, even from those who once ignored ours. That is not who we are." He paused one final time. "But we will not be coming back, High Counselor. The humans who begged for your acceptance are gone. We have built something new, something better, something that does not need your approval or your permission. We are not the primitive species you dismissed for 3 centuries. We are the human commonwealth, and we are only getting started." The message ended. The holographic display flickered and went dark. Vareth stood motionless for a long time, staring at the empty space where Daniel's image had been. His aide cleared his throat nervously. "High Counselor, how should we respond?" Vareth turned back to the window and looked out at his declining city. Somewhere beyond the stars, humanity was thriving, building, growing, becoming something magnificent. And all the Galactic Empire could do was watch. "Prepare a response," Vareth said quietly. "Thank them for reaching out. Tell them we are grateful for their offer of assistance in times of crisis. And tell them," he stopped, struggling to find the right words. "Tell them we are sorry. Tell them we understand now what we did not understand before. Tell them we hope that someday, perhaps centuries from now, our descendants might meet again as equals." The aide nodded and hurried away to draft the message. Vareth remained at the window, watching the sun set over a city that was slowly learning a painful truth. The Galactic Empire had ruled this region of space for 8,000 years by keeping other species in their place. They had maintained power through control and restriction and carefully managed limitations. But they had never encountered a species quite like humanity before. A species that did not fight back openly, but instead waited. Planned, built, prepared, and when the moment was right, simply walked away. The Empire would survive, probably. It had faced challenges before and overcome them, but it would never be the same. The departure of humanity had exposed weaknesses that no one had wanted to see. It had revealed how much they had relied on a species they had dismissed as primitive. Most importantly, it had proven that the Empire's way of doing things, treating new species as lesser beings who needed to be controlled, did not work. Not in the long term. Not when facing a species with the patience and determination of humanity far across the galaxy. The human commonwealth continued to grow. New colonies were established. New technologies were developed. New friendships were formed with species who had never heard of provisional status, and sometimes, late at night, humans would gather on observation decks and look toward the distant stars where the Empire still stood. They would remember the insults and the discrimination and the centuries of being told they were not good enough. Then they would smile, turn away, and get back to building their future. Because in the end, that was what humans did best. They built. They grew. They reached for more, and nothing, not even an 8,000-year-old empire, could stop them.